But if your marriage is on the line, then you have to speak up. You cannot allow those feelings, the internal battle that you're dealing with right now, something that you don't like, you can't allow that to sit stagnant. You have to say something. So someone asked me, when it came to my last marriage, the way it ended in the cheating, did I always have a gut feeling that she was unfaithful? And I thought that was a really good question because I can't honestly say that I had a gut feeling that she was being unfaithful. But what I can say that there were things that were going on that just didn't make sense. Just different patterns, right? You start to pay attention to your spouse. You see how they move. You see how they maneuver. And then when they move and maneuver a little bit differently, it starts to draw just some confusion. I can't assume that I couldn't say that I felt that she was being unfaithful at the time, but it did draw questions like, well, why would you do X, Y, and Z? So I'll just share one. Well, I got a few I can share. But the first one was she used to get her nails done within the same city that we lived. And she's was a creature of habit, didn't like a lot of change when it came to food, locations, restaurants, things like that. So that was uh, why I'm saying what I'm saying, because eventually she ended up going to a new nail person that was in a different city, which was about 15 or so minutes away. And I remember that was just so confusing because in the city that we lived, there was literally, I mean, honestly, maybe like 50 different nail techs that you could go to. So why go there? What's the reasoning on that? And mind you, she was pregnant at the time, so there were things that I didn't always fully understand, nor did I try to think too much of it. And I was like, okay, I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, but she was very particular, and because of that, it kind of made it more like, all right, I can roll with that, I guess. But that was still something that just drew curiosity for me to ask the questions, right? So that was one. Another one was, I remember one day, oh, we were living in Sacramento at the time. We had a house, and we started attending a different church because we were helping. I was helping my best friend build his church at the time, and so we ended up leaving to go and do that. So his church was very far compared to where we live, about an hour away. So I already worked in that same city too, so it just made more sense to kind of move, right? So we ended up looking for houses, but because I was working, I didn't have the time to go and do all that. So my ex at the time wasn't working. So her and my best friend, they were took it upon themselves to go and look for some houses in the area, see what they could find and whatnot. And for me, I didn't really like that. I wasn't a big fan of that. But I didn't really, again, think that there was cheating in the picture. It was just something I wasn't a fan of, but there wasn't much I could do because I did have to work. I did have to go and provide, while she wasn't able to work at the time. And so that part is very true. How else are we going to get this done? It's almost impossible to do the things that we need to do with the time that I have, because my schedule, I work 12 hours a day at the time. And sometimes it was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So just very crazy. So that was one of the other things that drew curiosity to me. Like, how else can we do this? But there wasn't really another way, but it was something I know I just didn't like. I didn't like that part. I wasn't a fan of that in general, but I didn't know of any other way. So I just had to like get over it. And then there was another time where I was at my ex best friend's house at the time. Um, we were sitting there. We had just got back from going out to eat. We used to go out to eat pretty much every Sunday, every Tuesday. It was just, that's what we did. Like, we're literally family. Um, and so there was one day we got back over to his house. We were kicking it, hanging out. And normally my ex and I would sit on one side of the couch, and his wife and my ex best friend would sit on another side of the couch. But this time we just kind of like plopped. It was like the same kind of thing that we normally do. But this time he sat down and she sat down on that side where he was sitting, and he went to go grab her feet and put them on his lap, and then she quickly pulled them back. And that was the red flag for me, where something was off. Like, I get we homies and stuff like that, but I was just like, I couldn't believe what I just saw. I was like, wait, did he really just do this? Like, and the reason why I say this is, if you knew him, you'd understand he's very playful, very joking. Uh, didn't really ever take stuff seriously unless it was about like church, unless it was about those things, and he was very serious. Aside from that, was constant jokes, constant like picking at people, pushing on them and stuff like that, you know. But that was the first time that ever happened, and of course the last time. But that was like, huh? You know, like you're gonna go that far into playing around and stuff like that. So that's how that really hit. You know, so I couldn't ever assume that she was cheating. It didn't register with me that that was actually happening. But it's just things that were just off, things that were just uncharacteristic, that seemed out of place. It just like, you know, you got blue, 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 and a sea of blue, and then you got one spot of red, and it's just like, okay, that's kind of random. And these were isolated events at very different times that didn't happen like the span of, um, you know, 2 weeks. They were over years of time, so it wasn't something I had recognized immediately. But as time went on, um, his wife ended up sharing that she had saw some things through their email, and that's when everything just started making more sense to me. Everything started adding up a lot more. It was just all those small little things that I just never really pinned down to have them connect. They didn't really connect to anything until she found what she found, which was his my ex best friend's wife. When she started connecting the emails, that was when it was like, oh, okay. So now the nails going out here is kind of crazy. Now the him pulling on her legs to put him on his lap is kind of crazy. Now the house search and having to be done that way was kind of crazy. Even that's still kind of a little bit, but everything just started connecting, and how much time was spent where I trusted, you know, my best friend and my wife at the time, literally with my life. I allowed them to move a certain way. And that was the part that I wasn't really being the smartest. I was being stupid. And I wish that I would have paid more attention to those things, meaning I wish I would have taken more time to trust God versus trust my wife and trust my friend, because he would have maybe said something differently, and he probably did, but I wasn't really listening at the time. You know, I was more so just concerned about being a good husband and being a good friend and not overthinking. Maybe I'm causing, you know, more problems than I need to. You know, it's like all those thoughts. You just don't want to cause no drama or no beef sometimes. And but yet, you know, inside of you, you're still feeling some type of way. It's still eating you up, and you just don't know exactly how to share what you need to share without causing any problems in your home. And that's what I thought I was doing, but I was wrong. So again, in the beginning, no, I didn't assume that she was being unfaithful. I just felt that there were things for a person who was in order, things were just out of order. And I chalked it up to the pregnancy. And I really didn't think too much of it at the time. So again, but now I understand. And now the biggest thing is for men. I'm going to tell you this now. If you're not making time to have the discussions with your wife about anything that you're feeling to avoid conflict or confrontation, you're setting yourself up. That is the biggest mistake you could possibly make. If you don't at least get that on the table with her and mention the feelings that you have, mention the things that you're seeing, mention the things that are causing you grief and problems, then you could be allowing certain things to take place instead of preventing things from taking place. We don't want to always argue. We don't always want to say what's in our mind, because you know what's going to happen when you do? She's going to have a lot to say. And sometimes it's just easier to not say anything, because you know if you just say the word the, then she can say 1,000 other words after the word the. And you're just like, all I said was the, man, come on. But if your marriage is on the line, then you have to speak up. You cannot allow those feelings, the internal battle that you're dealing with right now, something that you don't like, you can't allow that to sit stagnant. You have to say something, because you're going to hurt yourself. And it could be detrimental way further down the line than what it is right now. You're trying to save yourself some grief and some pain from having to have a conversation with your wife. You could be saving your marriage by saying something. So I would encourage you is that if you have any feeling, like the man said, a gut feeling, right, to me, even if it didn't make sense, it's like, at least bring that thing up. Like, why? I don't understand that concept. And if at the end of the day it makes sense to you, you got to let it ride out, right? You can't do much. You can't over complicate it, right? If she clarifies something and that's what it is, then hey, that's what it is. But there are some things that do not make sense. And if you have to ask the question, are you cheating? Ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask that thing, because you never know what could come from that. And you want to keep yourself and your heart in order. You want to keep yourself prepared. You want to keep yourself ready to constantly be on guard with your heart, because no one's going to guard that for you. You have to do that. So I say all these things like, I can't say for some people it might have been easier for them, but some others, it took some time. It just depends on the level of trust that you have. And my trust was limitless. I trusted my best friend with all my heart. He knew everything about me. I trusted my wife with my whole heart. She knew everything about me. Well, the parts that she didn't know, my best friend knew. So technically she knew everything because he just spun it. Um, but I learned to put my trust in God. And I really learned to understand that no matter how that conversation might go, that he already understands what it will be in the end. And I have to be okay with whatever that is. So don't run from a conversation because you think it's hard, because it's something you may or may not want to hear. Run to it. Get it on the table now so you can allow yourself to begin healing, or to get your mind off of something that's never been there. So I hope this blesses you guys. In the meantime, we'll talk soon. See you.